Our last chapter for the semester is cardiovascular and lymphatic infections. So, infections in the cardiovascular and lymphatic systems are called systemic infections. So these are ones that, because your heart pumps the blood, your lymph goes throughout your whole body, they wind up going everywhere within your body. So a term I'd like you guys to know for your final is endocarditis. That's inflammation of the endocardium. So sepsis technically is not an infection. It's an immune response to a toxin and or pathogen in a patient. It can progress to septic shock, which is a dangerously low blood pressure, oxygen and nutrients are cut off, and necrosis and organ failure may result. Bacteria or toxins that are frequently associated with sepsis are E. coli, Staph aureus, and Streptococcus. About 33% of sepsis cases, the causative agent is never even identified. So some examples of different viruses that can cause systemic infections are dengue, yellow fever, chikungunya, and Zika viruses. They're considered arboviruses, and they can be transmitted by being bit by a mosquito. So first of all, for your exam, please know dengue fever is caused by 4 different types of dengue viruses. And the one thing that is noticed with this disease is what we call leaky capillaries. So again, leaky capillaries is a sign of dengue fever. And if you look at the person's arms, they put a little tourniquet on, and within 5 minutes, if you see all of these reddish bumps, that means that the capillaries then are leaky. Now, a term I'd like you to know is called microcephaly, and that's when there's a arrested fetal brain development, and that results in an abnormally small brain and head size. So I'm bringing that up because a virus that you guys probably have heard of, Zika virus, can cause microcephaly. So the first cases in the U.S. Were seen in 2016, but it was first identified in 1952, or 52. So you can get fever, joint pain, red eyes, rash, like you see here as a result. But again, key thing, this can be transmitted to a fetus and may cause microcephaly and other brain defects. That's why pregnant women throughout the world, when this was big, were getting tested to make sure that they were not infected with the Zika virus. We also have hemorrhagic fevers that are out there. There's 4 viral families that are known to cause hemorrhagic fevers. One of them is Ebola, and you probably heard of that, transmitted from fruit bats, apes, monkeys, contact with an infected animal's excrement, etc. Again, it transmits from person to person through contact with bodily fluids. Now, between 2014 and 15, there was an epidemic in Africa, and it shows the number of cases here. The darker orange color shows where the heavier cases were. There were 27,000 cases with a 50% mortality rate. Marburg is very similar to Ebola. It's found in monkeys and fruit bats. This one has an 88% mortality rate. Now, Epstein-Barr virus can cause mononucleosis. Please know that. Epstein-Barr virus can cause mononucleosis. It's a type of herpes virus. It's believed, guys, that 90% of the U.S. has been infected with Epstein-Barr virus at some point. So by the time you get to be my age, odds are you've been exposed to this particular type of virus. Does it mean you're going to get sick? No. Diagnosis is by looking at lymphocytes, and you guys can see here, this is a good example of a large lymphocyte that would be seen in an individual that has mononucleosis. This can lead to Burkitt's lymphoma. So again, guys, please know Burkitt's lymphoma can be caused by Epstein-Barr virus. and that the endemic type is caused, 95% of the endemic type is linked to Epstein-Barr virus. So again, Epstein-Barr virus causes Burkitt's lymphoma. 95% of the endemic types of Burkitt's lymphoma are linked to Epstein-Barr virus. Here's an example. This poor little guy here, you can see the lymphoma. So is his, he's got a tumor over on this side of his face. Retroviruses, please know, use reverse transcriptase to convert RNA to DNA. So there's a lot of different ones that are out there, guys. They can lead to cancer, cause immunodeficiencies, and normally I talk a lot more about HIV. I wish we had the time to do that this semester, guys, but it really became a worldwide pandemic back in the 1980s. Millions of new cases are seen every year. There's about 36.7 million people currently living with HIV. The hardest hit areas right now are in sub-Saharan Africa. In an acute type of an infection, the virus circulates in the blood, targets helper T cells. They have flu-like symptoms, they go away. And there's a lot of very good tests out there. The ELISA that I had you guys do in lab, the virtual lab is a way to detect it. There's nucleic acid testing, etc., to check it. There's a clinically asymptomatic stage. The virus is just replicating, and basically it goes on to infect more helper T cells. That can last for months to a year, and we don't know what triggers it to go to full-blown AIDS. There's suspicions out there, but we really don't know 100%. So what this graph is showing, guys, is here's the number of cells. And when you first get infected, your cell count is high, virus level is low. And then that kind of switches where the virus level gets high, cell count goes low. But the virus then goes low, being detected in the blood because it's inside of the T cells. At this point, you have a little spike, and then you can stay in this state for a long time. But without treatments, eventually the T cell count goes down and the viral count will go up, and then eventually, unfortunately, the individual will die. This is just a list of some of the cancers and infections associated with AIDS and what would cause those. So these are opportunistic types of infections. There are antiviral types of therapies. Usually they're given in combinations, usually two reverse transcriptase inhibitors, protease inhibitors, integrase inhibitors, etc. And basically what they're doing is that reverse transcriptase inhibitor inhibits reverse transcriptase. The virus needs a protease to cleave some certain types of proteins. Integrase inhibits the actual integration of the DNA that's made and inserted into the patient's nucleus. Prevention, condoms, they don't always work. Not having sex at all would be a good idea, but in any case, there is what's known as PrEP, guys. It's a prophylactic, and it can be taken by HIV-negative individuals who are in sexual relationships with HIV-positive partners. That will reduce the infection. Then there's post types of prophylactics out there, guys. And also there's a vaccine that's in development. So far, none of the vaccines have been very effective. So two terms to know: bacteremia, presence of bacteria in the blood, and acral gangrene. Acral gangrene is an insufficient blood supply to the extremities that results in tissue death and blackening of the skin. So the plague happened a long time ago, guys, and please know it was caused by Yersinia pestis. Now, it was carried inside of fleas that were found on bats and rodents back in those days. Now again, it killed about 50% of the European population in the Middle Ages, and we still see 1 to 2,000 cases periodically worldwide nowadays. And if you look in the United States, there's primarily in the West. I don't know what happened in Chicago. It's not my fault, but there seem to be some cases there as well of the plague seen today. Now, please know this. Signs and symptoms of the plague. The biggest one, guys, to know is the acrogangrene. And again, what you see then with acrogangrene is the blackening of the extremities. And look at that. Almost looks like the person stuck their hand in tar or something like that. Bacterial endocarditis. Please know that bacteria are the most common agents, are Streptococcus species and Staph aureus. So bacterial endocarditis, guys, then, is inflammation of the endocardium and or one or more heart valves. So these are the two types of microbes or bacteria that will cause that to happen. And just to show you guys, a normal healthy heart should be nice and red and firm. And this is a damaged heart valve. You see it's a little bit gooey looking, yellowish, etc. So it's definitely damaged by the bacteria. We also have tick-borne illnesses that are out there. And the main one to note is Lyme disease. And please take a screenshot of this and upload it to the Dropbox. For your test, please note Lyme disease is caused by Borrelia burgdorferi. And about 300,000 people get infected in the U.S. Per year. And it can be harbored inside a tick. The tick bites you, and then you get the infection. Telltale sign, the first one is what's called arrhythmia migrans. It looks kind of like the Target logo here. That usually goes away, but following that, you can have symptoms of fever, fatigue, headache, even arthritis in long-term situations. Protozoa can also cause various types of infections. Main one to know, malaria. Please know, malaria is caused by Plasmodium, and that can infect you if you get bit by a mosquito that harbors the Plasmodium. And finally, guys, it's been one of those semesters, hasn't it? With COVID, some students of mine made this several years ago from one of your lab videos, and I think it's applicable today. Hopefully it won't come to this. I wish that we could have been more face-to-face, but it is what it is. I hope that all of you are safe and well and happy, and that even though this isn't the way that I originally planned to teach this semester, I hope you feel that you've learned something in this class. And I wish you all the best.